I left Islam a year ago and my sister found out. I'm Jack, 17 years old, and I have a sister who is 23 years old and studies outside my country. Furthermore, I searched well for 2 years and decided to leave Islam when I was 16 years old. It is a personal decision and my freedom, but there is no freedom in my society and family regarding religion. I'm sure my sister won't tell anyone, but I'm afraid of losing her. I knew that my wife was the one after what she did for my nephew and brother. My girlfriend is the one, yet I'm going to marry her, so my update is the title. Then I did marry her. Our relationship was still new, so I obviously didn't propose immediately, but after that I knew, so my nephew is doing great. Obviously he misses his mom and that will never go away. Then I really admire my brother. After I saw that she had stolen my pictures and even copied my caption, I started looking through her other posts. Some look like random Pinterest photos of lakes that resemble Canada more than Scandinavia. The rest are mostly close-ups of her eyes or self as taken in dimly lit rooms. The whole thing gives off such a creepy feeling. I would assume that people were more mature and didn't lie so much at that age. I said I was ready to go to sleep instead of no, I don't want to have sex at 21. I have been with my boyfriend 24 for about a year and usually spend weekends at his place. This past Friday I barely slept, maybe 2 hours total. By Saturday evening I was completely exhausted when he suddenly pulled the blankets off me and said he couldn't wait any longer, so I just cried while it happened. I was worried that he would get even more upset. When I was 14, I got my first girlfriend pregnant. I had a daughter when I was 14 and she doesn't know I exist. We were kids completely in love and completely over our heads. Her parents were ultra rich, controlling, and cared more about appearances than people. We have a son together, and I love him more than anything. But some nights I just feel like a ghost haunting a life that could have narration. She left me today and told me she wanted a divorce. We're young, I'm 25 and she's 28, no kids, married for 2.5 years. It hit me like a truck. I convinced her to do couples counseling, useless, and individual counseling therapist told her to be true to herself. She loves me but can't be married and has commitment issues. I want to be comforted by her, but she is gone and she is the cause of the narration. I knew I'd checked it 1,000 times before he called me back to the car. The warning blinked briefly when it first popped up. It was one of those things that they put in to make sure that no one left a child in a hot car. I averted my eyes when I turned off the car and checked the back seat again, but there was nothing there. Furthermore, I sat in the waiting room and drank coffee and played on my phone, so I knew that I was narration. Add to the door? I said out loud before my brain caught up, but the doorbell rang, but Mom frowned. We broke into an abandoned office park, yet now my missing friend won't stop texting me. I'm typing this in my room with the blinds open and every light on, and it still feels like the dark in here is thicker than it should be. My friend's face is stuck in the last frame of a video I can't make myself delete. If you live near Fairview, you've probably heard of Parkland Corporate Centre. It's the half-finished office park off of Minus 27, just past the Shuttered Shell station and the dark Staples sign near the Tractor Supply. 3 buildings, 2 stories each, all glass and concrete, a crooked U around a parking lot that's slowly turning back into a field. The sign by the road still says, Parkland Corporate Centre Leasing Inquiries, 555-189. I called that number once on a dare. It plays a recorded voice that says a leasing agent will be available and then just cuts out, but no beep, no menu, nothing. Then it's been like that for years. They started building Parkland before the 2008 crash and just stopped. The county threw up a sagging chain across the entrance and a no trespassing sign on one post, so that's the extent of security, and everyone just calls it Parkland. Everyone says not to go there at night, and we went anyway. There are 3 of us, me, Caleb, Mason, and Tyler. We're not urban explorer people with channels or merch. We're just idiots who get bored and decide that driving to empty places with flashlights beats another night of yelling at each other in Discord. Furthermore, we've been to Parkland twice before, both times in the afternoon. Creepy, yeah, but bearable with sunlight coming through the glass and traffic noise drifting in from the highway, yet this time was different, and Mason brought it up at lunch. He dropped his tray down across from me and Tyler, grinning the way he does when he knows he's about to say something dumb and try to sell it as fun. Yet night run, he said. Parkland and tonight. Tyler poked at his fries, but we already did Parkland, he said. It was just carpet and sad office chairs at 3 in the afternoon, Mason said. You know how many jump scares happen at 3 in the afternoon, so 0, you've got to see it in the dark. He talks with his hands, like he's always mid-story, then teachers like him even when he's late, but he gets away with stuff. My mom's on closing shift at Kroger tonight, I said, yet she won't be home until 11. If I text her that I'm at your house, she won't check. Tyler looked between us for a second, yet my parents are on nights, so again, he said. I just have to be home before school, but we stick together this time. No leaving anybody in creepy bathrooms. I'm not playing that game again. Mason put a hand over his heart and Scout's honor. I was never a scout, but still. We met up in my driveway around 9. October air, cold enough to see your breath if you sailed hard. Street was quiet except for one dog barking down the block. Mason's Civic is a 9 silver with a crack in the windshield he hides under a parking permit. Des and I break for nobody sticker peeling off his bumper that he thinks is way funnier than it is. Tyler got in the front with this big black mag light between his knees, so I took the back. You bring your light? Mason asked me, acting out, but yeah, I said, tapping my pocket but little early on my keys. Yet you bring bolt cutters. He snorted. So you think I have bolt cutter money? No, but Shane's low. Then I checked. I believe him because that's the kind of thing he actually does. We rolled past the closed Starbucks and the 24-hour CVS on Maple, then hit the on-ramp. The radio was down low, someone talking about used trucks. I watched the green exit signs go by, 25, 26, 27, then Mason took exit 27. Instead of heading right toward the strip with Tractor Supply and the empty Staples, he turned left, down the darker road that passes fields, and one lonely sodium streetlight humming like a bug zapper. Ty, you know people say someone died out there, right? He said, because of course he did. People say someone died everywhere, Tyler said, not looking up from his phone. There's probably a guy on Reddit right now writing, I worked the graveyard shift at CVS, the pills weren't the scariest thing he'd get, like 5,000 upvotes, I said, and we laughed, then it came out thin. The Parkland sign appeared on the right, half covered by branches. Our headlights lit the blue logo and the dead number, then it slid by, and we turned in at the next gap. The road changed under us as soon as we left the highway shoulder. Smooth asphalt became cracked pavement with grass bearing through. The chain across the entrance sat between two concrete posts, a rusted padlock hanging from one side like an earring, what a security theatre, Mason said. He stopped, got out, and lifted the chain, yet it scraped across the hood, so I ducked even though I was inside, and a little higher. I said, and yeah. He eased the car under. Once we were past, he dropped the chain behind us. It climbed off the bumper and settled somewhere in the weeds, then the lot swallowed us up. It was darker in there than I expected. The trees along the road blocked most of the town glow, so once you're inside, it's just our headlights and black glass and concrete, and building A was straight ahead. B and C angled off, making that crooked U. Their fronts were mostly glass, somewhat smashed. Graffiti covered the doors and lower panels, white tags, silver crowns, and a few detailed red things that looked like someone had practiced drawing organs. Mason killed the headlights but let the engine idle for a second. The world outside the car turned into shapes and reflections. No turning them back on and flooring it just to freak us out, Tyler said, preemptively, but I'm saving the battery, Mason said. After a beat, he shut the engine off. The ticking of the cooling engine sounded too loud, yet thank you clicked in the mad light. The beam cut across the lot cracked parking lines, strong grass, building A's front steps, then the glass doors at aluminum push bars. One pane was cracked through, the other intact but buried under spray paint, and in 15 minutes, Tyler said. In and out. We drove all the way out here for 15 minutes. Mason said. It was boring in the day, Tyler said, yet we're not camping inside. 20, Mason tried, but 17, I said, and split. He rolled his eyes, yet 17 minutes of terror. Let's go. I was the last one out. When the dome light clicked off, the dart pushed in immediately. Tyler swung the maglight up toward the front of the building and caught something in a second-floor window, so I stopped walking. Yet what? He asked. I thought I saw somebody up there, I said, pointing at the far right window, yet all three of us looked up. Just saw stretched reflections looked back, 3 figures and the white beam, the Civic behind us, but maybe don't start with that, Mason said. But he checked the window one more time before turning away, and he pulled one of the glass doors, so it creaked, but opened, so no alarm, no emergency lights, yet just a dead lobby smell. Inside, the air was thicker, but damp carpet, old dust, something sour underneath, like maybe a drain had been backing up somewhere for a decade. There was a fake fern in a corner, its leaves grey under a skin of dust. A reception desk sat with its monitor smashed in. Our footsteps echoed up into the second floor. Kill the light for a sec, Mason said, but Tyler did, so instant difference. Without the beam, you notice how little ambient light is actually getting in. Just a faint glow from the glass behind us and some ghost rectangles where windows must be upstairs. The building had its own little noises, a drip somewhere, a distant crack. Okay, no, Tyler said, snapping the maglight back on. The beam jumped, and that's when we noticed the white powder on the floor near the base of the stairs. Someone had emptied a fire extinguisher across the tile since we'd last been here. A dusting of white spread in a fan shape, so footprints went straight through it. I don't know how we missed them at first. Once you see them, they're all you see, so they were long, but too long. Narrow heel, deep arch, and at the front, 4 thick ovals, each one ending in a deeper pit like something had dug in. Dog? I said, even though I knew better. Dogs have 5 toes and pads, Tyler said, quietly. And their tracks don't look like they've been punched in. Fake shoe, Mason said. He crouched, smeared a little of the powder away with the back of his fingers, then the dust moved and the depth of the indent didn't. Like some idiot made a monster boot to freak people out. Then why walk in a straight line and peace out? Tyler asked, and he was right. The prints came from the doors, clean through the powder, and headed toward the elevator lobby and the stairs, so no wandering, no pacing, but they disappeared where the light fell off, so up. Mason said. We're sticking together, Tyler reminded him. Then we are, Mason said. We just stick together upstairs and then stick together out. I don't love the idea of walking back across that. He was wrong. I didn't want to be between those prints and the only exit either, so we went up. The second floor always felt like Tan had stopped mid-sentence, but downstairs was empty space. Up here, it felt like everyone had just stood up and walked away at once. Desks, some with family photos face down under a fuzz of dust. Swivel chairs, a few rolled out into the middle of the floor like someone had pushed away from their computer too hard. Whiteboards with half-erased bullet points. Q3 targets, client pushback, onboarding. The calendar by the stairwell stopped at August 2009, so Tuesday the 18th was circled. A dry erase marker lay on the whiteboard's metal tray, cap off, tipped right to nothing. Someone had drawn a smiley face next to the word team. Tyler's beam slid over all of that, then down to the carpet, yet the prints were up here too. Same lawn, 4-toed shape pressed into the old grey fibres, marching down the main hall, then the air had the attic heaviness, so light dust had a weight now. We passed an office with a nameplate C, Burton HR. Inside, a mug that said Wells OK ESD bottles on its side, something green and furry blooming out of it. There was a Safety First 1234 Days Without Incident poster on the wall. Somebody had written lives across it in ballpoint pen. You ever think about how nobody came back for their mugs? Tyler said quietly. Other pictures, they probably boxed it all up one day and dumped it in storage, Mason said. He sounded like he was repeating something he'd read online, but we were stalling, so the prints kept going. The hallway narrowed as we turned a corner, ceiling lower, exit signs hanging dead and crooked. The emergency stairs were at the end, red metal door, narrow glass window. In daylight, it had just been a door, then now it felt like a closed road. Tyler swung the mag light down the hall and stopped, but something was in front of the door. God, I love this stupid thing. Does it still work? I asked, so she popped open the compartment, then there's film in it, a 20-year-old film. My cousin and I used to play a game with my uncle's Polaroid camera. I think something else is still playing it. When my uncle died, nobody knew what to do with his house, so he never married, never had kids. It was just him, his little 2-story place on the edge of town, and his weird hobbies. He had been the strange uncle my whole life, the one who still used a landline, still collected VHS tapes, still had a paper TV guide by the couch like it was 1998. So when the lawyer told us he'd left the house to me, my first reaction was pure, selfish relief, so I was drowning in rent. I worked a crappy support job at a software company, taking calls from people who somehow managed to break things by turning them on. The idea of not having to split a 1-bedroom with a stranger sounded like a miracle. The house needed work, but it was structurally fine. 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, creaky wooden floors, so it smelled like dust, and old coffee. It felt lonely, but not in a creepy way, so at least, not at first. We started cleaning it out the Saturday after the funeral. It was just me and my cousin Lily, who'd been closest to my uncle besides me. He really didn't throw anything away, as she said, holding up a cracked lava lamp. Maybe he just thought everything would come back in style, I said, so we laughed a little, yet it felt good to laugh. The Polaroid camera was in the hall closet, on the top shelf, just where I remembered it. Then holy shit, Lily said, reaching for it. Then remember this thing. I did. When we were kids and got stuck at his house during family gatherings, we'd play this elaborate game where one of us would hide, and the other would try to sneak around with the camera and take a picture without the other noticing. You got a point if you caught the other kid on film without them seeing you, then bonus point if they looked really scared, yet we thought we invented horror photography. Lily turned the camera over in her hands. That can't be good anymore. Only one way to find out. She lifted the camera, pointed it at me before I could protest, and clicked. The camera whirred and hummed and spat out the square. The picture developed slowly, colours muddy and washed out, but it was there, me, standing in the dusty hallway mid-blink. Still works, she said, satisfied, and sat it on the entry table, but we went back to sorting boxes. It wasn't until later, when Lily had gone home and I was alone, that I opened the whole closet again and saw the photos, yet hundreds of them. Stacked in shoeboxes, pinned to corkboards, taped to the inside of the door, then Polaroids, all of them. It was like opening the door of some strange, analog Instagram addiction. Most were ordinary pictures of my uncle's living room, his old car, his garden, stacks of books. A few were of people I recognized to me and Lily as kids. My mom, my grandmother before she passed, and the majority were backs and people's backs. People standing at the sink hunched over the coffee table, bending to tie their shoes. Sometimes you could see a sliver of face in a mirror or window reflection, but usually it was just the back of someone's head, the line of a spine through a shirt, shoulders drawn up or slumped. All of them were taken from behind, yet all of them looked like the subject had no idea they were being photographed. Then a weird, uncomfortable chill ran through me. I told myself it was just his idea of art. Street photographers did candid stuff all the time. Maybe this was just his version, but domestic, and creepy, but not legal. Still, I closed the closet door and tried not to think about it. I moved into the house a week later, and at first it was almost nice. Lonely, yeah, but I kind of liked it, but the creaks and groans became familiar, but my uncle's old recliner was surprisingly comfortable. I bought a thrift store lamp, a cheap rug, tried to make it feel like mine. The first few nights, I slept with the TV on because the silence felt heavy, but nothing too weird happened. Until I woke up on Wednesday and found a Polaroid on my kitchen table. I was sure I had left it on the entry table by the front door, then that's where Lily had set it down, then I hadn't touched it since. I picked it up frowning and found a fresh photo underneath it, and it was me, obviously. Sitting on the couch the night before, laptop open, blue light reflecting off my face as I scrolled through emails, so the photo was taken from behind. I was wearing the same sweatshirt, my hair in the same messy bun. The TV was on in front of me, a blurry wash of light. I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Yet okay, calm down. Yet there was a logical explanation, so I must have accidentally taken this. Maybe there was a timer function I messed with as a kid and forgot about. Maybe I somehow hit it while I was walking by and didn't hear it over the TV. Maybe the rationalizations were flimsy even as I thought them. Lily, I said out loud, relieved at the sudden possibility, so she had a spare key, but maybe she was screwing with me. It was exactly the kind of shit she'd pull, yet I texted her, ***, very funny. You didn't scare me, you just wasted old film. ***, a minute later, ***, what are you talking about? But ***, the pic you took last night, then of me on the couch, yet nice stalker vibes. Then ***, goes at home last night. I worked a double, I was in bed by 9. ***, you didn't come by the house at all, yet ***, no, then why? ***, I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. I sent her a photo of the Polaroid, so she took a minute to answer. Then ***, okay, that's actually creepy. Then ***, you really didn't take this. So dude, no. Why would that be my idea of a prank? Burn that house, lol, ***, I laughed, but it came out thin and shaky. I put the Polaroid in a drawer, a camera on top of it, and told myself that was the end of it. The next one showed up 2 days later. I was rushing to work, half asleep, when I saw it on the small table by the front door, the Polaroid camera and another photo underneath. This one was me again, standing at the kitchen counter, pouring coffee into my travel mug. The angle was low, like whoever took it was crouched near the floor. In the photo, my head was tipped slightly to the side, yet the back of my neck was exposed. I ran my hand over that exact spot and felt goosebumps prickle on my skin, yet I didn't text Lily this time, and I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I did the thing my uncle never would have done. I bought a security system. By that weekend I had 3 motion-activated cameras set up, one by the front door, one pointing down the hallway toward the bedrooms, and one in the living room. I put the little yard sign out front, ***, protected by shield security, ***, like a charm against evil, then just in case it wasn't ghosts. Just in case some creep really was coming into my house at night. The next night, I stayed up late on the couch pretending to watch TV while I kept one eye on the live feed from the cameras, so nothing. Just static, soft changes in light and shadow, the occasional flicker as the heater kicked on. At 1:30 in the morning, my eyes burned. I finally gave up and went to bed, but I woke up at 3:12 a.m., yet not because of a noise, and not because of a nightmare, and because I suddenly felt watched. It was like someone had leaned over me while I slept. That suffocating awareness of another presence, inches away. I lay perfectly still, heart pounding in my throat, and forced my eyes open, then the room was dark. The shadow of my dresser loomed against the wall, moonlight seeping through the edges of the curtains, so there was no one standing over me, but no looming shape yet, but the feeling didn't go away. I sat up slowly, flicked on the lamp, and scanned the room, then empty. I slid out of bed, forced myself to walk down the hallway, past the dark bathroom and the empty second bedroom, into the living room. The Polaroid camera was sitting on the coffee table, pointed directly at the hallway, and there was a new photo underneath it. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. It was me, asleep in bed, on my side, hair spilled across the pillow, and taken from behind. There was something else in the picture, too, something that made my stomach drop. In the mirror of my closet door, you could see a sliver of the room, but my back, so the edge of my pillow. And behind me, just at the limit of visibility, there was a suggestion of a shape. Darker than the rest of the shadows, a hint of height, a slight curve as if someone were bending over me, and I dropped the photo like it burned. I grabbed my phone and opened the security app, yet my fingers fumbled with the password, but the hallway feed was empty, but the living room feed too. The timestamps ran smoothly, no gaps, no obvious glitches. I wound to 3:12 a.m. and watched myself on the bedroom camera. I'd put one in there too, after the first photo roll over, and sit up, then swing my legs out of bed and walk to the living room. No one else, and no shadows moving where they shouldn't be, yet the photo existed. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in sick and spent the morning seriously considering booking a hotel and never coming back. Instead, I did something stupider. I opened the closet with the shoeboxes again. I don't know what I was looking for. Confirmation that my uncle was just a weird artist. A note saying "Lol got you from beyond the grave." What I found was a separate stack of photos, rubber banded together, tucked behind the others. Then they were all the same person, but my uncle. Sometimes he was sitting at the kitchen table with a newspaper. Sometimes he was in the recliner, head tilted back, mouth slightly open. Once he was brushing his teeth in the bathroom, then all of them were taken from behind, then every single one. In a few, you could see his reflection, a tired man with thinning hair, a worn face softened by age. In one photo, he was asleep in bed. In the mirror, behind him, there was the same suggestion of a shape in the shadows, so my hand went cold. The last photo in the stack was different. It was of the hallway, right outside the closet I was standing in. You could see the bedroom doors, the scuffed baseboards, the slightly crooked picture my uncle hung of a lighthouse, but it was empty. Except for a pair of bare feet visible in the very bottom of the frame, heels turned outward, toes pointing directly toward the camera. The skin on those feet looked wrong, too pale, veins like dark threads under parchment. The angle was low, like the camera was on the floor. Like something was lying on its stomach, looking up. I shoved the photos back into the shoebox, hand shaking uncontrollably now, yet I needed air, and I needed light. I needed to not be inside these walls with whatever this was. "We're still friends, right?" I fucking screamed at him, and that bastard. When I was 16, homeless kids were going missing in my town, yet I know what really happened to them. I won't go into detail why I was thrown out of my house at 16, yet financial problems / I came from a poor family. Mom and Dad wanted me to get a job, and I wanted to stay in school, so that caused arguments. I also made the mistake of revealing to them an intimate part of myself I should have kept fucking hidden. Look, I won't say being on the street was better, but being away from that toxic environment was like a breath of fresh air. I lived in a pretty big town, and there were a lot of kids living on the streets. I did try and find somewhere at first. Furthermore, I stayed in hotels with my last remaining cash, but then I found myself with the option of eating or starving, yet I was very stubborn at 16. Furthermore, I hated asking for handouts, and just the idea of asking my school for help was like a losing. Furthermore, I didn't want my friends and teachers to know about my situation, so I dropped school. Yet again, I was a stupid, stubborn kid. Furthermore, I obviously should have asked for help, but back then, teachers didn't care. Kids in my school were severely bullied, and nothing ever changed. They were there to teach, and that was it. So, the thought of telling them I was fucking homeless just wasn't happening, so I didn't want their pity. I didn't want their attempt to try to empathize with me when in reality, they did not give a fuck. So, yes, I ended up on the streets, and there was a community of us, so we were all in the same situation and thrown out for the same reasons. Toxic and abusive parents or significant others, so all we had were each other. I've seen homeless kids depicted on TV / movies as scrappy pickpockets, then that's a lie. The kids who I hung with weren't brave enough to pickpocket. If they saw cash / food / anything they wanted hanging around and claimed, they would snatch it up. The pickpocket thing is just the media glamorizing the idea of being a street kid, turning them into a fun, quirky group of teenage criminals trying to survive. The reality is a lot more depressing. I ended up in a group of kids on the south side of our town. Ben, the leader of our gang, was the latest to disappear. Look, I didn't believe in the child catcher rumors. I thought they were just stories, but it became evident someone was actually kidnapping street kids. I may have come from a toxic house, but I was sheltered, and I didn't think things like that existed. Furthermore, I had never been in the type of situation when they could exist. Kidnapping was like a foreign concept to me, and it only happened in movies and cartoons. But then familiar faces I knew started to disappear. Carly, a street performer who was trying to earn enough money to leave town. Jason, the weird kid with the eye patch who tried to steal my phone. These kids weren't friends, but they felt comfortable. They felt like a community, even when I wasn't personally close with them. Carly always smiled at me, offering me fresh donuts some old man handed her in the morning. Jason was always skulking around the music stores, asking for change. Every time I saw him, we talked about things that didn't even matter. But talking to him made me feel less alone. When Jason disappeared, that normalcy I'd gotten used to started to fade. I looked for him, but his familiar purple woolen hat had vanished. Carly was always singing under the bridge every afternoon. I could hear her voice while sneezing in the park entrance. Then she sounded like an angel. With her gone, I felt colder than usual. I couldn't get warm no matter how many times I rubbed my hands together and stuck them under my coat. I had holes in my socks and shoes, and the freezing chill was creeping into my bones, and Carly's disappearance really shook me. Especially when, several days later, a guy took her spot with his guitar, screaming out painfully bad reimagining of pop songs. When Ben vanished, I started taking word of mouth more seriously. He's been taken by the white van. Was the rumor floating around. Apparently, some kids saw Ben getting dragged into a white van. This kid was also known to say BS to get attention, but his claim was actually believable. Ben, Carly, Jason, and the other missing kids were last seen at the homeless shelter. So, the place where kids were vanishing wasn't exactly ideal. But it did have hot soup and coffee, as well as a place to charge my phone, so I risked it. The homeless shelter was where most kids hung out every day. I used the mostly broken facilities to shower, used the bathroom, and tried to make connections with kids who were well known. It was pretty much a survival instinct at this point. If I was going to survive on the streets, I needed people I could count on. I had this constant need to get my name out there, just in case I was one of the missing. But it turns out not all homeless kids play nice. I won't go into detail, but there were a lot of names I thought I could trust, and quickly learned that I couldn't fucking trust anyone. I got my first phone stolen, and then my shoes were snatched while I was sleeping. Furthermore, I was definitely hardened after a while on the streets. So, when Charlie came along, I basically told him to go fuck himself. All the connections I made just lost me cash, food, and my shit. The worst thing you can be as a street kid is nice. If you want to be left alone, you have to make it very fucking clear. Without Ben's leadership, things went off the handle. I was quickly labelled as a naive bastard who F/W anyone. Most of my spots were compromised, so I had no choice but to once again risk the homeless shelter. My initial plan was to grab food and coffee and make a run for it. I had the town library as a safe spot until 4 p.m, and after 10, the guy who owned the Chinese takeout begrudgingly let me sleep in his doorway, and I think he felt sorry for me. But at this point I was too fucking cold to care about pride. The volunteers in the soup kitchen were my age. I didn't know them thankfully, but I was eager to get out of there. The food was a choice of cold curry or soup. I chose soup and a chunk of stale bread. The coffee was always lukewarm, but it was coffee, and I wasn't going to complain. I was trying to eat it as fast as I could without burning my mouth, when a kid I can only describe as the human embodiment of a golden retriever slid next to me, grasping his own bowl of soup. With dark brown hair under his hood and freckled cheeks, not to mention his expensive jacket and shoes, I knew the streets would eat him alive. This kid looked like he'd stepped right out of a perfect suburban home. He had a mommy and daddy and a perfect fucking life, so lucky him. I was having a hard time taking in his expensive clothes. Yes, his hair was greasy, and his clothes were slightly discoloured holes in his gloves, dirt smearing his face so he was clearly sleeping rough. But this guy was asking to get his branded coat stolen. Take the off, I said to a mouthful of stale bread, and that was all I could say. I didn't want to say hi, because hi was an invitation to join me. I was on my 3rd phone, and I wasn't taking any chances with this kid. 2 years of fucking with the wrong people, I was done. I nodded at his jacket, and he looked confused. Put it in your backpack, idiot. I was just warning him of my past mistakes. I did have my dad's expensive watch, and some shoes I bought with money from a summer job before I left home. Furthermore, I lost both of them because I failed to hide them. Elizabeth and Mary, 2 older girls I thought I could trust, were now proud owners of my shit. The guy had this docile look on his face, eyes wide like a fucking deer. I had no idea how he had survived this long. If he was sleeping in the shelter, Yes, it was safer and warmer, but it also made him a target for kidnapping. Unless you want to lose it. I added, finishing my soup, and the guy continued eating, completely unbothered, and your jacket. I said, directly. Furthermore, I didn't lose my patience much, but this guy was testing me. Take it *off*, or you will lose it. After being fucked around with by Ben's asshole friends, it felt strangely good to be an asshole back to a total stranger. The kid hesitated, before pulling off his jacket and backpack, awkwardly yanking off the jacket and stuffing it inside his bag. Then he sat there shivering like an idiot, and I gave up and offered him one of my spare sweaters. Street kids usually wanted something in return, and I was waiting for his proposition. Instead, he said thanks and then pulled it on. I'm Charlie, he introduced himself when I stood to leave, grabbing my own pack. I told him I didn't ask, and that it was nice meeting him. When he followed me, I thought we were just going the same direction. But then I took a turn down an alleyway, and his footsteps hesitated before coming after me. I was all ready to tell him to beat it, but Charlie looked lost. He had this look on his face, like he was trying and failing to look intimidating. This kid didn't look like he was going to steal my shit while I was sleeping. I didn't officially ask him to join me, it just sort of happened. When I got back to my spot, he dropped his pack and started unrolling his sleeping bag next to mine. I took advantage of his kindness, the innocence that was yet to be drained from him by every stone-cold night that never seemed to end. Midnight and dawn felt like centuries apart, and I was never warm enough. My toes were always numb, my fingers losing all feeling. The worst part was when I didn't have enough to eat, so I started fantasizing. But Charlie never lost that stupid fucking smile, but even when he was freezing to death. I told him to grab us food for the night, and he came back with 2 pizza rolls and a can of soda to share. I asked him how he'd gotten them, and he shrugged with a grin. This kid expected me to play along with his cryptic games every time he did something vaguely helpful, and I didn't care how he'd gotten them, so I was just thankful. I started to see Charlie as less of a nuisance and more of a friend. Charlie was loud and obnoxious, and drove me insane with his dreams of getting out of town and his situation. But he made me smile even in freezing temperatures. He never told me about why he was on the streets. Instead, he always changed the subject back to me. I didn't realize how self-centered I was until I spilled my entire life story to him, and when he opened up about himself, I started talking about myself once again. In a way, I think I saw it like a competition, so your life is bad, well, this happened to me. I waited for him to get frustrated or angry, but he just listened, and he always listened. It was snowing when the 2 of us sat shivering on a wall, our legs dangling. I don't remember whose genius idea it was to sit in sub-zero temperatures, but I remember enjoying the icy breeze on my face, and everything was covered in white.